scheduled to attend this event. And so, if you want, we can just dive into the questions that we have for you today from the board. So, yeah, the first question we have for you is like, could you just give us an insight into the companies that you have founded so far, and what was your thought process for starting each of these companies?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I guess I'll just clarify at least one of the companies or businesses I had co-founded, which was StartPad. I'm no longer part of it. I separated from my business partners, but I'll share with you guys how we started it and then why I left. In regards to the other businesses, it was more so pretty much the stepping blocks between working on different businesses, finding opportunities, and creating what is basically a demand for clients and services and needs, and then being able to turn that into opportunities. So I guess we'll just start with StartPad as the first one. I actually had just quit corporate and gone off on my own. Or I guess we'll start with EYC, since that's more of my own solo businesses and opportunities. When I quit corporate, my last corporate job was at Google. I was selling digital AdWords for them. So a lot of the time that I was spent was talking to large companies, especially any companies that had an online presence, whether they were an e-commerce brand or like a bank. I was talking to their CMOs, the CEOs, to come up with digital strategies alongside with them, and we were working on six-figure budgets, coming up with their marketing campaigns. So that was my job, and then so going into it, I left corporate and then I created my own Amazon business. I'm sure you guys might be familiar if you guys are trying to dive into the entrepreneurial world. The Amazon business is in the private label industry. So I actually launched a few products right after I left corporate. And one of them did pretty well. I was profiting about $150 a day with one of those products. And then I launched a second product that didn't do very well. But during that time, as you build businesses, you get connected to other people, find other opportunities. So at the time, I had connected with my friend who was already in the Amazon space working on different businesses. And so that's how we started to work together, combining our experience and expertise in product launching, branding. And I actually first worked under him, my partner, where he had a bunch of projects, he needed help, he had some clients coming in. And that's where we discovered that, yeah, a lot of people needed help with just getting their product launched to market. They either started inventing a product or patented something, but they haven't really taken it off the ground. So that's where we started StartPad. It actually means a startup launch pad. So we just combined the two words, and we focus mainly on hardware products, consumer electronics. And so that's how StartPad was formed. So EYC Group is still me with my other e-commerce businesses that I run by myself. Then it spun into StartPad. So after I left StartPad, I exited from it, left my two business partners. We had grown it to a seven-figure business as like a incubator agency. We had acquired a few businesses at the time too. Like if people came to us for launching products, we either invested into them to take equity or we just bought them outright. And then I decided to step away. So going into NeedThat.com, that was the idea for running a media company, where whenever we launched a product, part of the success is when we get media coverage from Engadget, CNET. It's the same thing if you get featured on Forbes, right? Like if you get some media coverage, you'll probably get a boost in, whether it's website traffic or sales. So I figured if I could build my own media company to encompass everything that I do in terms of product launching, that it becomes its own ecosystem. And then lastly, the Sabotage card game, I came up with the idea, found that there was a good opportunity within the niche, and I just used my expertise and experience to basically come up with the product test it, run a Kickstarter for it, and then we raised close to $150,000 in 30 days. So that's basically the quick summary of the 3-4 companies in itself.
Okay, so so it comes across to me that a lot of your ideas were based on a specific need or a specific gap in the market that you perceived. So do you think that that is an important part of knowing that you have the right idea for entrepreneurship, or do you think there's more to it? Like, how did you know that you had the right idea, basically?
Yeah. I'm sure maybe you guys have come across this, but a lot of companies or inventions are actually derived by problem solving, right? Most software companies is derived by trying to build some automation for a certain company, and then they realize like, wow, this is actually a huge need, for other people. It's, to me, the same thing in translation where, we were launching products to market, whether it's a physical good, companies or people just didn't know how to do that. So that's why when they came to us, there's customers that are willing to pay us $10,000, $50,000 to help them launch a product. And if we were able to prove it, show results, clients just keep referring other clients because they notice the successes, they recognize the expertise. So that's how they come to you. And so I would say, yeah, if you keep an eye on opportunities and as you build your own business expertise, you'll start to recognize opportunities. Like the way I got connected to my business partner was because he had posted a picture of cardboard boxes on the back of a FedEx truck. That's all he had posted online, right? So like, unless you guys are familiar with like the e-commerce space, moving products, to a normal person, it's just a boring picture of boxes on a FedEx truck. But when I look at the picture, it's like, oh, that's a lot of products and a lot of units. This guy must be in the e-commerce game, right? And so to me, my reality was perceived differently than any other person. And that's how I reached out to him. I was like, hey, are you selling products online? You're doing e-commerce, you're doing Amazon. So it's just recognizing opportunity and then just being able to take advantage of that.
Okay. So then I also remember you mentioning that you launched a product and one of them did not do as well as the other ones. So do you feel like making mistakes is important in entrepreneurship, or and even if you make mistakes, how do you like avoid them the next time?
Yeah. Mistakes, accidents, trauma, it's all to me pretty much the same thing where, if you're a kid, and I guess technically this happened to me when I was a kid. I think I was like 4 years old and I was very curious. You know how you have the electric stove, not the flame ones, but the electric ones, they're still red when they're hot, right? And when I was 4 years old, I think my grandma had turned off the stove because she just finished cooking. And I was like, in my head, red means hot, but once it's not red, it's not hot anymore. So I decided to touch that stove once the red turned off and I burned my hand, right? And that was probably the biggest mistake of my 4-year-old life at the time. And I can tell you, I probably never touched a hot stove ever again, right? So it's the same thing with business. For me, that second business I did launch, it was a $10,000 mistake. I had invested into inventory. They were paper targets, the ones that you find at the shooting range. I neglected the fact that I needed to quality check because I assumed you can't really mess up printing ink on paper. And what had happened was the ink itself did not dry appropriately onto the paper. So by the time the units arrived, they already flaked off. So I ordered, I think like 7,000 units or so. They had landed here. I routed one box to me, didn't quality check it beforehand, opened it, and all the products were ruined. But the rest were already into Amazon. So, once we started selling, there's I think 30% of the batch were bad. So people were getting the product. The ones who got good products were happy with it. But once you have 30% of people not happy with it, 30% of 7,000, I don't know, quick math would be 2,000 people who are writing very bad reviews. on your Amazon listing, right? And so that was a dead product upon arrival. So I would say with a $10,000 mistake, it's better to do that now and to ensure that you're always going to ensure quality check, quality control, because when you're scaling up to the next product, the next production, next project, you're not going to make a $10,000 mistake, right? So even with the card game, we're upping inventory where we just ordered 10,000 units, and then we're going to drop another 25,000 units in 2 months. And so you bet that mistake I made 4 years ago from the Amazon product, I'm not going to make again here.
Yeah, and thank you for this, because I think it's very important for all of us to know as well that like mistakes are not what define you, but they're just like a stepping stone into who you should become like in the future.
Yeah.
And expanding a little more on what you said about opportunity, um, did you have like a sense of calling, or when did you know that it was the perfect opportunity for you to enter into the startup world from the corporate world?
You're talking about going from corporate to entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Because when you say startup, there's plenty of startups in Silicon Valley that you can join, right? Series A, Series B, Airbnb,
Yeah.
people still call it a startup, even though it's not. In terms of going off on your own to start your own business, it just comes down to how financially secure you are, how big of a risk you want to take, what are the sacrifices you want to make. Because some people, they could move back. I mean, I think you guys are all still in school, so most of you guys will probably move back home with your parents after you graduate. But I was already 26, living outside. So one of the sacrifices was moving back home in order to save money, right? And for a lot of people, financial security is one thing. Whatever your risk tolerance is, the best scenario, and this is what I tell most people if they want to start their own business, is to start it while you're working corporate. So if you have a corporate job, you have a salary, say you're making $5,000 a month from corporate. That's a starting salary in the Bay Area, right? $60,000 or so. That in itself should be enough for you to get started. I would assume your rent is going to be $1,200 if you're living, frugally in the Bay Area. You can move elsewhere too. LA is a lot cheaper. Not going out, not partying, not blowing money at the bars. I don't know if you guys are all 21 yet, but I mean, you'll end up, going out drinking, spending $200 in one night, buying people drinks and stuff. It's fun. I did it all, but not all the time compared to all my friends, right? There's on occasion, special occasions, you can go do that. But once you realize that $200 that you are going to blow in 1 second and people aren't going to remember because they just get drunk and hungover, that $200 you could be investing into your business, investing into a course, investing into inventory. And this is what you're investing is into yourself, right? And even if that product or project fails, that's experience you're chalking up. I'll tell you guys straight up, I had saved about $200,000 from corporate. And I would say I am lucky because I did not have student loans, right? So what I would tell you is if you can defer your payments on student loans or able to save as much money as possible through corporate, then you can make the jump. But keep in mind, when I say $200,000 is because I was very frugal during corporate. I don't buy expensive stuff. I don't buy the flashy shoes, Nikes. I don't even know what that is like, the hype beast or streetwear culture. This shirt I'm wearing is probably like 9 years old. I'm just not a flashy person. So I just saved all my cash. Technically, to me, that was financially secure. I think I probably could have quit if I had saved up maybe $75,000 and invested $25,000 into starting a business and just make the mistakes going forward. I decided to quit corporate without having a plan. So what I should have done was stayed in corporate and started investing my payroll into the projects. But by that time, I already been working for so long, I saved up enough, and I decided it's worth it for me to just go off on my own. So the last thing I would say is for you guys to, if you really want to start your own business, the best test is do it while you're working corporate, because that's where all the distractions are. And this is how you guys would decide if running your own business is really what you want. Because what's going to happen is you're working corporate 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Your coworkers will be like, let's go out and drink. You're going to be super tired after work, commuting 1 hour. You're going to be like, you just go home, you just want to watch Netflix, or you just want to go play video games, go play Valorant, right? So unless you really, really want it that badly, then you would stay up, focus, really drive forward on creating the business that you want, whether it's, e-commerce, a brand, product, agency, whatever it is. If you don't dedicate that extra time to really want it, then entrepreneurship is not for you.
Okay. Again, this is a lot of valuable advice and insight for all of us. So then, just a final question for you, as a very general question. What advice would you give any of us who want to start our own company right now?
As students,
Yeah,
as
a student.
a student, if you can find opportunities, you guys find problems, right? If people, a business in itself could be tutoring, right? Let's just say, for instance, there's an opportunity where some of your classmates need help studying for their exam or test, and they're willing to pay money. That right there is a market demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's scalable or not, that's another thing in terms of business principles, which we could dive into later on, because I talked to many different companies and people about the projects or product that they're trying to launch, and I tell them whether it's scalable. But that's just like the first start, right? If you guys are talking about how do you get cash, how do you make money, how do you build wealth, those are the different areas. Whether it's like a tutoring business, you can hire, you guys are all friends and colleagues. If one of you guys find an opportunity and you guys can flip something, let's just say, for instance, one of you guys here knows how to do graphic design, or not even graphic design. Let's just say you guys know how to build a website, right? You guys find me as a client, we're talking to each other, and you say, I can help build you a website. This is something that you need. How much are you willing to pay? And I say, hey, I'm willing to pay $2,000 for a website, right? You can then go and figure out how to build a website, or maybe you already know how to build a website. But then you start picking up more clients like me, right? You're starting to flip this $2,000, $2,000, $2,000, but all of a sudden you can't scale based on time because you have too many projects. But then one of your friends here, they see that you're making some money, and they're like, well, what are you doing? And you're like, I'm building websites. You could teach that person to build websites, and you tell them, oh, because you're just starting off, I will give you my next project, but I'm going to pay you $500 to build a website because you're starting new. Then all of a sudden you're pocketing $1,500, right? This is a service-based arbitrage model. It's the same thing as how agencies build it, finding opportunities, and then contracting people from Fiverr, from Upwork. It's just finding the needs and the demands of the marketplace and fulfilling those needs. Because technically, these people don't know how to problem solve, right? So they're coming to you to problem solve things. That's really what entrepreneurship is how much can you problem solve and how far are you willing to go to problem solve these things.
Okay. Thank you. So this concludes all the questions that we have from the board, and I feel like this is this conversation was very insightful for all of us. So I think Sheve is just going to take over for the audience questions. Thank you once again for sharing your knowledge with us, and we hope that we can use some of this as we move forward in our entrepreneurship journeys. Thank you.
Yep. You muted? No, his audio's not working.
Sheve? Hello? I don't know. Z.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Sorry about that. I was just saying that this was some really insightful talk, and now let's move on to the audience questions. So our first question is: as an entrepreneur, how hard is it to get traction?
I guess the question is, what would you mean by traction? To
I
whoever asked
think
that question.
I think out here the question in terms of traction they mean by like getting money going on, stuff like that.
I think it must be the cash flow, like
Maybe.
for the first few months.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Cash flow.
Yeah. So the question is, just starting off, how do you get traction? How do you get sales? Right. That question would be more easily answered if it's towards a very specific business type or business model, right? Because it all ranges. If you're a service-based company, if you're a product-based company, so obviously, like if you're a product, to gain traction to sell a product is you need to market it. Whether you market it well is a different story, but here's the thing that not a lot of people will tell you guys. And as you guys come out of college, and I'm sure you guys follow all these other people who talk about learn how to become a 6-figure agency, learn how to do 7 figures, all that stuff. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter about the revenue. It just matters how much you're profiting, because you could pretend you have traction by spending money, right? Let's just say you want to run Facebook ads and direct people to a product. A lot of these companies are going negative on marketing budget because they're not converting well. They're overspending on marketing, but because they're making sales, you could chalk up a 7-figure sale within your sales records. To the public eye, that's traction. But I would say traction is, do you have a scalable business? And scalable would mean as long as you have a 5 times margin, the minimum if you get started is you need a 3x ROI. So I'm just going to speak in the context of a product-based business for you guys, especially because I just launched the card game. If you have a product, what is the cost from the factory, right? That has to be at a minimum 30%. Then you allocate 30% for marketing, and you hope that you're going to 30% profit, right? That's the bare minimum. Technically, the companies that are successful have 10x margins on that, right? So it's 10% cost, then 90% variable based on that. So 30% advertising or marketing, and then you have 60% profit margin, because what a lot of people don't realize that you need to still allocate what you've made to reinvest into new inventory and hiring more employees and how to scale. So if you think about the card game itself, I think it costs 10% compared to a industry rate of either 30 or 25%. So whenever I sell a product, I'm making, let's just say I spend 30% for marketing for it. I'm making 60% back, and I can reinvest 30% of that and profit 30%, which is huge. A lot of companies scale their businesses off of 5-10%, and that's called slow growth. When other companies you look at, if their trajectory is higher, is because they have better profit margins. So when people tell you to get traction, they're going to tell you, oh, just go market until you have a sale, but they don't look under the machine and under the hood. All right, so that's really all I can tell you guys.
I see. Thank you. The next question is how to raise funds for a crowdfunding campaign.
Kickstarter itself is one thing. I'll tell you guys that I invested about $30,000 to get this Kickstarter up and running for the card game. But if you think about it, most people are looking to get $30,000, from a crowdfunding campaign. I have plenty of people who reach out to me because they've only raised $5,000 and they're over the moon. To me, it's not worth it unless you can do a 6-figure campaign. But as you guys know, and I'm sure you guys have heard, it costs money to make money. And obviously the more money you spend, the more money you can possibly make. So for me, a $30,000 investment was a sound marketing or sound investment to go into it. The question is too broad to answer, because technically crowdfunding is whatever goal you put. Some people put, I need to make $1,000 to make the project happen versus $10,000 versus $100,000. So it just really depends on the scale you want. I would say $5,000 is enough to do testing to understand if the market is going to receive your product well, and that's enough to get started technically.
I see. Our next question is I think based on the last question, how hard is it to get investors from the Bay Area to invest in your startup?
I actually don't take investments. I'll tell you guys, what you guys can do is always calculate life on a 1% conversion rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Anything in life is 1%. That's why you have the 1% of wealthy people, 99% of people with no money or middle class or whatever it is. For me, the same principle occurs with marketing. If you look at an industry rate of conversions for sales on Shopify, a little over 1% is a good store.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing funnels, 1% conversion. So everything I do, if you guys break it down by funnel, is 1%. So I'll tell you, if you want investors, it's just a numbers game. You go ask 100 people for money, at least one person's going to give you money.
1%.
Yeah.
What is your favorite and least favorite aspect about starting up a business?
I hate doing accounting. I'm not good with numbers. I just have enough experience to know and estimate the figures. Just in context for the card game, I had looked at vendors, factories, allocated the budgets. I expected to make $10,000 in profit from this campaign, but my math was so bad that I ended up profiting about $30,000. But it's because I estimated high and had all these margins of error. And so I always plan modestly and expect the worst case scenario. So if everything works, then it's a good return, right? So that's all I could really say in terms of the business side for accounting. I'm not there crunching numbers, looking at numbers all day. I just say, hey, this is the estimate, and hopefully it works out. That's probably the worst part for me. The best part is getting to take the opportunity to build a successful business, make the connections, find like-minded people. I've been able to build out a very robust network of very successful people and people who are just starting off, and having opportunities to work with both, getting exposure to some of the world's wealthiest people, and just helping other people to return the favor. That's really all I could say about jumping into the entrepreneurial world.
What is the secret of being a hustler?
Just knowing when you want to quit is all. Yeah. I'll tell you guys when I was running StartPad with my business partner, he didn't have that great of management skills, and I was still very young in terms of the experience. So I kind of let him call the shots. So we got a lot of opportunities, we got a lot of projects, but we gave up on a lot of them. Mm-hmm. There's some that I think could have done very well in terms of opportunity. We've worked with some celebrities that own businesses or trying to launch their business off the market, and we weren't involved or passionate enough to keep it going. So the moment you decide to quit, that's really when it stops. So that's why the most successful people just keep grinding and grinding and grinding. But yeah, you have to be smart about deciding when is it worth it to stop? Is it a good business, a good business model? Is it something you're passionate about? That's really what it comes down to.
And our last question. What is something you wish you knew about starting up a business before getting into the whole process?
If you can learn to manage and delegate tasks, I would tell people to learn as much as you can so you're familiar with whatever's going on. Let's just say you don't have to be an expert at Facebook ads, but if you go hire someone who tells you they know how to do Facebook ads, you should have enough working knowledge to know that that person's not screwing you over, right?
That's very true.
And not rely on that person 100%. I always hedge my bets. But I never tell anyone I'm an expert at Facebook ads, but I know what's going on. I can dive into the numbers if I need to. I can look at the analytics. I can look at whether the person who's managing the ads is doing a good job or not. But I don't do that as my day job, right? I don't sit there tweaking ads all day, every day. I spend my time to delegate that to someone else so I can figure out better opportunities, bring in more business, all that stuff. So that's would be my advice.
That's really great advice. So I think that concludes all of our questions. Thanks a lot for taking our time for our event. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if there's no other questions from the audience, yeah, just feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You have questions about business, let me know. I think you guys have my contact info, so you guys can just, post it up. Follow me on Instagram too. I don't really post too much or show off too much in terms of the business side. But if you follow like the card game, you can kind of get an idea of just like our slow social media growth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. So that's it. You guys want me to hop off, or are you guys good to go?
Yeah. Shabia?
You could hop off, I guess.
Yeah. Thank